Yeah, network problem. Thank you. Yeah, my internet connection just dropped. Probably it was my singing that did it. No, someone is singing. You're not allowed to do that. It's not allowed. Must interrupt. Oh, what have I done now? I kicked something. I kicked a power thing. Are we still live? Is this... Okay. Looks like I didn't cause any major problem there. Network problem, yeah. 5 milliseconds. Okay. All good now. I can start again as if this is a new stream, because it is. You don't have the chat. We don't have the chat at the moment, because then of course it doesn't. I need to I need to get my hands on the source code to OBS, and the thing that really annoys me is the fact that you can't have wildcards in the matching of the windows, so I have to reset it by hand. There we are. Now we have it. Do you like the new layout? I'm quite happy with this transparencies. I think it's nice. Ow. The clock fixed itself, by the way. It's I didn't do anything. It just corrected itself, as it does from time to time. Has anybody actually tried to hack those to fix them? That would be interesting. Hey, Alan. Welcome. Yeah, I went from the Atom to the Beeb. I'm really having fun working on the Atom again. I think it's really good for me, and you can get a little bit jaded with software engineering really easily these days, especially when you are working with frameworks and big bloated software, and you spend most of your day not actually engineering. It's shocking. But last couple of years I've been working at splash damage and using Unreal instead of Unity, and I've much more enjoyed Unreal just because there's a much higher percentage of actual programming as opposed to wrangling, even on a large project. What's under the cap? My head. Ooh, getting sore. I'm annoyed by that thing, which is it's an old man spot. But now I've got a red. I think I need to not wear the hat anymore. It's like I can pretend to be cool this way. Look, I can wear it this way. See? And I can be in with a crowd. See? It just looks terrible, doesn't it? It looks like a flipping something else worn on the head. It's really terrible. That's very red, isn't it? I'm just going to look in the mirror. What did I do there? I agree. The 6502 simplicity is a beautiful thing. I hope you're not cold because of... I don't understand that, Tony. I'm old. I'm not currently cold, but I'm old. I've come face to face with my own mortality, as we do eventually, all of us. But it's okay. There's a good side to it as well. It's like, you know, closer to always look on the bright side of life. Anyway, yes, the 6502 simplicity is a beautiful thing. I agree. I've completely lost track because the internet went down. The stream restarted. I've actually lost track of what I was doing. Somewhere in here. I got as far as... I just figured out what was wrong with the collision detection. I think I fixed it. The world is crazy. I have no idea anymore. I don't pay attention. I mean, if the world doesn't pay attention to me, why should I really pay attention to the world? I mean, think about it. There's got to be a kind of a give and take here. Seriously, the world can go and do whatever the world does. I'll do whatever I do. I think this is what I'm going to do is, and what am I going to do? I'm going to turn on the collision detection again. I'm not the best. You're in Canada with a dog and a wood fire. And I think that sounds great. We should probably get a dog. And a fire. Now the new house that we're in doesn't have a fireplace. We don't have a fire. Well, you've confirmed one thing for me. I know that... Hey, John. The thing here is telling me that there's only one person watching, and I know there's 3 of you now at least. So that means this is just these stats that they put here are just to depress people and make things worse than they really are. Seriously, nothing works as well. I'm getting very grumpy. How are you doing, John? You're the best. There's much doubt at all. We have the best person in the house. Now you can... We could just continue this in a chain, couldn't we? Someone else, you'll say, no, I'm not the best. Someone else comes along. I don't know what I'm talking about here. I should get back on with the work. So, okay, it's late. I'm tired. There's one thing I noticed doing this assembly programming. I enjoy it, but it's a workout. It really, it's a work, and it healthy. It's like, you know, people train, don't they? It's a healthy workout. I wish I'd done this years ago. What was I looking for? Collision detection. Right, that was it. I need to turn the collision detection back on and see if I fix the problem, which was the collision detection wasn't working because it was colliding with itself. That's the plot. I'm just scrolling up and down at random at the moment, trying to find... There, this is the collision check. will halt if it finds a collision. Yeah, there's only one viewer. It's the special viewer. It's the super viewer. It's the one that destroyed my internet connection when I started singing, viewer. I don't... Only Tony's view. Well, Tony, yeah, because Tony is the best viewer. Oh, I've been coding in public, John, for years now. I did that. I was coding Kickoff Revival on stream. You wouldn't think so from the comments that people made and media they made. Took zero interest about the fact that I was that open and honest with the game, that I was streaming development every day. It doesn't bother me. And so the collisions detection is now working. Oh, I use ChatGPT. I'll talk about that, but I do use it. I use it to sort out. I use it to give me example code on APIs. And for that, it's actually good. Especially where the APIs are not well documented, which is the case with Unreal. That's one objection to Unreal, is criticism of Unreal. But you can use ChatGPT and ask it questions on how to do stuff in Unreal in C++, and it just gives you an answer, and it's better than using the search engine. Seriously, because the search engine, if you just go to Google, well, what to do? How do you do this? And you follow the link, and it's boom. And what do you have? Pages and pages of ruddy blueprints. It's like, I don't want blueprints. I'm not interested in blueprints. I want to use it in C++. I need C++. Give me some C++. And you're having this. It's like you have to wade through all this rubbish, and then getting example code in C++ and for Unreal. It's just, it's soul destroying. That actually for me is one of the things that's probably the least fun in all my years of using technology. The least fun aspect of it is finding out how to do stuff. It's searching for the answer to things. It's like this. I've got criticism of AI, as you know, but that there are some aspects of it that make me think that they can be. It could actually be a force for good as well, especially when it comes to getting our thoughts straight. You know, okay, it can be used for malicious manipulation, but I tell you that you can use it to identify flaws in reasoning. So think about that a minute. It's like if somebody goes and is saying something that's stupid or wrong, just a politician, we're going to see a thing where things that politicians say will be fed into ChatGPT so it can then give an impartial feedback on the veracity of the things that are said and how whether they make any sense or not. And that could be done even in real time. What this might do is result in a thing where people start being careful about what they say and stop using words so fracking sloppily. And that's a potential there. Anyway, that's rather off topic. Yeah, blueprints in the end, the silly thing about blueprints is that they're exactly the same as programming. There's no difference. It literally is programming. It's just that it's programming where instead of being able to at a glance see 3 lines of code, you have to look at a big thing like this. But other than that, it's still programming. And the problem is that just because it seems to have the illusion of no typing or less typing, people seem to think that it isn't software engineering when you use blueprints, which means that they give it to people to do who are not qualified to be software engineers. They're just not. They don't know how to be software engineers, and they hack away in blueprints, not even realizing they're being software engineers, and creating atrocious messes. And I could rant on. It will never create anything new. Yeah, but I actually think that that's good, because we keep creating new rubbish. We need a bit of stability. I never really thought of it that way before, but this is playing devil's advocate a bit, because I don't disagree with you either. But it's like, think about it for a minute, that what we're doing is we're pushing the boundaries of reality through the misuse of language. So maybe a little rooting things back into the past a little bit, where we have a history of what words actually mean. And this is really, I mean, if you're following the philosophy videos I'm doing, this is really something that I'm thinking hard about these days. I mean, like the other day, I was talking to colleagues at a pub. It was an on-site, and I made I talked about professionalism, and I sort of passionately believe in professionalism being a vital thing. And I go as far as saying that a way to even develop strong friendships that are beyond professionalism and a workplace is through professionalism, for various reasons. And I was just talking about that. And so immediately that I put forward the idea of the value of professionalism, someone I was talking to sort of visibly recoiled. So I asked them, why do you recoil at the word professional? And they said, well, it's like, I said, well, what do you think we should do? You know, in order to be able to develop friendships, develop, a working relationship into friendships. You know, they said, we need to show each other respect. And what makes you think that that isn't being professional? Being professional is about respect. It's probably the core pillar of professionalism is actually respect. And I could see that they were a bit puzzled by this, because I didn't really have a good answer. And it's because the word professional has got abused. And the thing is, it's fine. You can then say, well, we can't use the word professional anymore because it's, he's got negative connotations or whatever else it is. So you throw that out, but there's nothing to replace it, which means now we don't have a language to talk about the fundamentally good way that we should work together. You see? So what you can do now is go back and ask ChatGPT about its opinion of professionalism. And it's an interesting thing if you try and do that. And it's the way that it's set up, which may not last, but the way that it's set up, it does seem to have a route back through the historical, culture that goes, and language, so that things sort of get rooted back into a sense. We can bring back words like respect, the actual proper meaning of the word respect, and not the modern cultural interpretation of respect. Those old-fashioned words that actually are really important. I don't know. Anyway, I'll just check the chat. Yes, thank you. That you put it much more succinctly, John, there. It's like, It's like books. But the difference is this: what we've had, and it's another way of looking at it. What we've got are so many books, and there's so much information. There's too much information that nobody can dive into that information anymore. Not really. And this is another reason why we have a fragmenting of common sense. It's like different people have different versions of common sense. It depends somewhat on the random distribution of what they've been exposed to from a whole plethora of stuff. There's no way to boil it down. And I always thought you could boil it down by talking to experts or talking to intellectuals. I can't find people to talk to about that. And I was about it, in person, not really have a good old natter on intellectual matters. But actually the reason is because there's just so many widely differing perspectives. It's almost impossible to have a chat about anything in depth or sustain not a disagreement, but a kind of interesting discussion. So what the AI can do is give you a perspective or help you navigate that utter mess and somehow connect to it. So one of the things I've tried doing is I've tried talking to ChatGPT as if I was trying to have a conversation with, an intellectual conversation with someone. And it doesn't do particularly brilliantly, but it does a lot better than you'd expect. But that doesn't matter. It's like I'm having a discussion with a neutral entity that has absorbed the accumulated wisdom of humanity, and it doesn't have any biases. I mean, it may, but they don't seem to come across. It's like talking to, it's not, when I've tried doing this, it's not, I haven't immediately been then listening to any kind of extreme viewpoint, for example. It tries to remain balanced. It tries to remain fair. Who does that these days? Who do you ever talk to? Online, send a message on Twitter, wherever. It's like you're not going to get people responding to you with a careful, considered, balanced thing. We don't have that kind of conversation between human beings anymore. It's all it's a blooming football match. Everybody's fighting. So if you want to have a discussion with someone who isn't going to fight, but is going to try and give a balanced and fair observation on things, you can talk to ChatGPT. And that I didn't expect. That was an unexpected thing, which I find quite interesting. I also like to have fun of taking two people in history. I asked it to generate a conversation between Jordan Peterson and Alan Watts. I'm looking forward to GPT-4 though, because I think they might get a bit more interesting, because there's a little bit predictable in the way they operate. But you see, when I did that, it's like you have what a hypothetical Jordan Peterson would have said. And you kind of know the kind of things that Jordan Peterson says, and you can see how they don't match. But then when you look at that conversation, you can see that what was being said was perfectly reasonable. And so in that way, it kind of highlights the potential unreasonableness of someone. I'll leave it there. AI is Mr. Yeah, you've got. I like that. I like as we put things in a very succinct way. AI is Mr. Spock. If you want a Mr. Spock, talk to ChatGPT. Anyway, where was I? Oh, what I have got here is, I interrupted. I changed the focus before. Yeah, hang on. That's annoying when it does that. Right. No, I still have an error. Stray character. There we go. There we are. So look, the collision detection works, which is absolutely fabaroonie. And I wonder, can I control the ship? Yeah. Oh, I've got a bug. It detected a collision. Why? Why has it collided with itself again? That's annoying. It collided with itself. Turn off the collision a minute. Why? I've got 2 viewers now. Yeah, that's great. I'm rocking it. You see, look at that. It's so sad. Oh, and that time. Oh, because it got commented out again. I'm thinking about how I'm going to debug that. It's like, why is it detecting a collision? It has to be colliding with itself. Are you talking about bandits on the BBC Micro? That would be. Is that my game you're talking about? I can't remember what the ship. What did I use a Y for the? Oh, I thought I used a triangle on bandits, but yeah, bandits. Wow, you know bandits. That's amazing. That's incredible. That's an interesting game to develop as well. It was a triangle, yeah. The bandits was interesting because I used synchronization of the VSync to the sprite drawing on that. Even though the BBC Micro didn't have any scanline interrupt, it did share the crystal that was used for the CPU with the one that was used for the video circuitry. So it was possible to set up a timer and synchronize the timer to the VSync, and then you would read the timer and get an approximate idea of where the beam was down the screen, and then I would check before drawing the sprite if it was about to draw the sprite. So clearing the sprite would cause a flicker, and it would just wait until it, until the beam had gone past before drawing it. I used the same technique in Kickoff. But of course there it was easier because there was a horizontal blank interrupt. You could actually just use an interrupt routine without too much trouble. But on the BBC Micro you had to fashion it out of an actual out of the bits of the hardware, out of a timer. The timer might have even been used for the operating system, I don't know. But, those were the days. I might remake that game. There's so much to do, so little time. Anyway, I've got to figure out how to solve that. How do I solve that collision? See, the collision detection. Is nice. Nice. I don't know about the NES. There's always a way. I did it on the. I did something that people said was impossible. I got to 1 millisecond precision. 1 millisecond precision timer on Windows 95 for a DOS program running under Windows 95. And it was noisy, everything would jump around, but it was possible to do that. I was trying to optimize 3D display with reading the joystick. It was something like that I was doing. I wanted to start reading the joystick sort of early before the V blank. There's always something you can do. In that case, it was the 18 times a second, I think it was. The operating system would have a tick from an interrupt. So what you could do was run that circuitry much faster and then have your own intercept that interrupt routine and then divide it down, so the operating system would still be happy, but you would have a high resolution timer. It was basically trying to get a high resolution timer where one wasn't. Those are the days. I was using that actually. Oh, wait a minute. No, it wasn't. I did experiments with 3D later, but actually I was using it for the football game that I was doing with Microsoft, not Microprose, before they cancelled it, which was a shame. Totally smooth scrolling using modex on a PC and completely smooth even under Windows in a DOS window. And yeah. Number of cycles since power on. Really? Wow, that sounds useful. I didn't know about that. I do know that on the PC there was a wire missing. There was on the original PC. If they had connected a wire between 2 points of circuitry that was available, it would have allowed for something like a hardware, something like a horizontal blank. I can't remember what it was exactly. I just remember that it was there, and I was going, oh, pity they didn't put that single wire in. But anyway, those are the days. So I'm trying to figure out the collision, and that happens in draw sprites. Have a look at the draw sprites routine. This is the new one that has to ask, what am I doing? Am I clearing or drawing, and from which buffer? I suppose the simplest thing I could try on this is that, say, despite all of my checking that I got it wrong, and switch that to minus. And then it crashes immediately. So I think that answers that question. Crashes. It collides immediately. So why would it do that? I mean, when I clear the sprite, it should have cleared the sprite. Well, I mean, there's nothing to say about it. It would have cleared the sprite. And the only way that I would get the collision counter to increase is if, after clearing the sprite, some bits were set. And in fact, it... Oh. No. Surely not. It could be. It could be that it's. It could be that something else has collided. I think the problem. No, because there's collisions here and they didn't happen. I didn't pay attention to those. That's because it registers collisions when they occur with different sprites. Because I cleared the sprite counter here, and then it gets incremented here inside that, and then it gets stored into the sprite. So that actually makes sense. I think maybe one thing I can do to try and debug this is what? Yes, I was thinking that. I'm thinking I could remove the other sprites. Is there a simple way I can do that? That's a good question. Is there a simple way? It draws the sprites from the top down. Yes. The easiest way for me to do that, so I only have the ship, is it draws the ship first, but the ship is at sprite 10, and then it counts downwards. If I remove the loop, on the drawing of the sprites, I think I can leave all the other code. It's just on this, if I comment out that, I think it will only draw the ship. Let's see if that's right. Okay, the others are drawn before the loop, but the loop is only drawing the ship. So good one, thanks. And now I'm still getting this collision, but what I can do is check for collision after drawing the sprite. And I can actually check the value of 82 straight after drawing the sprite for debugging purposes. Let me put this over here. So what I'm going to do is load $82, and then if this is branch if not equal and then if it is equal, jump to halt, because the point is that in theory it should be impossible for that to occur and there not be residue on the screen after it removes it, after it well, it uses XOR plotting, but yeah, after it, interesting, it just immediately did it, even on the first draw. That's because I have that wrong way round. Branch your feet. Try that again. Okay, so this is just behaving like it did before. Now I'll try and turn the ship, and there, look, it disappeared. So it's halted the moment that it detected a collision, but there isn't anything on the screen, which suggests a bug. It does suggest a bug in the collision detection, which is done as part of erasing the sprite. So what I could do is look at the blit routine. I did this earlier as well, but if I comment out the 16 increments, I have to comment out the 16 increments and then see that we don't get any collision checks. Then I'm going to slowly bring them back. I did this earlier, and what I found in the test case I had before was that because the sprite is moving upwards, and because it had a nose going like that was the same with the lines going down, it wasn't detecting a collision with itself because it looked the same, and then it would detect a collision when it reached a point where the sprite changed. So I said, it's colliding with itself. Only now it doesn't do that, but it's doing something when I try to turn it. Yeah, it was colliding with itself. So I had to refactor some part of the... It would collide with itself here, because it would be fine until it reached halfway down the sprite where the thing spread out, and then it would... And then I realised that the problem is that you're detecting collisions on both the erase and on the draw. And it should only check for collisions on the draw. Then I realised that if I check for collisions on the erase, I can remove a compare from each of these checks. And now I've got to the point where, yeah, it works for this case, but as soon as I turn anything, the guy around, we get a problem. So what I'm going to try and do is remove that comment there. So this is checking only for the first byte which is plotted, because then I can just check for one of those checks. Hang on, right, be ready this time. So we do that, and we can turn it around, and there was a collision. So that's interesting. I'm going to do another test on that. It seemed to work all right, but it's not going to collide with the whole thing. It's only the first byte which is being checked. And that time it didn't work. That's really weird. Oh, it even went off screen without colliding with anything. Did I comment it out again? All right, then it collided with something. All right, well, hey, Leopoldo. Ciao. Come va? That's a bit suspicious, isn't it? Although it might not be quite, because it's only the second byte, which is the top. If there are no pixels in the top row, it wouldn't detect anything. So I'm just going to slowly add back the different bytes and see when something in it collides with itself, which it certainly doesn't seem. Yeah, that collision happened. That made sense. It is making sense. Oh, damn. And no collision detection issues there. What did I collide with then? Ah, I had a discussion. Well, I talked about that a little earlier. Yeah, the reason for having the pixel collision is that then I got a very quick way of detecting when a collision occurs. Otherwise, I've got to do. I would have to do bounding box checks because I certainly can't check the distances. And there would be a lot of them. The ship can collide with 10 objects, and there are shots as well, and those shots collide with the with things. And without having the pixel check, it's actually going to be a lot slower. So this is actually a way of sort of faking a hardware sprite collision. Then the calculations for a collision only need to be executed when this pixel detection occurs. And now one of the nice things that came out of this was that you could fly the ship into the sea. For example, if it went in nose first into the sea, sometimes you would be playing the game, and the aim of the game is to collect the letters. You could actually fly into the sea, and you would have you'd be inside, but it wouldn't actually be colliding. So one of the effects that you get with this is a very, very fair collision detection. It's absolutely precise to the pixel, and that's often a problem, and it's actually difficult to do these days. Usually what we do is we have an area of effect, but you make the area of effect to well, the area of effect kind of fudges the precision of the collisions. And it's one of those things that I like to think about because it's difficult to do these days in modern hard. How would you do pixel perfect collision these days? In modern contexts, I don't think you can. Part of my exercise with this is just exploring the origins of my own game design work and understand myself and how I got to here. And frankly, what here is and what it means, which I don't know anymore. So this doesn't seem to be a problem. I'm fascinated by what this problem could be. And what's meaningless? Everything? Everything is meaningless. No, the Atom supported 6K. Actually, you could expand it further, right? But I mean, just the board itself supported 6K of RAM for just normal CPU RAM, but it's really all CPU RAM. And it had 6K for graphics memory as well. But the graphics memory is addressed just like ordinary memory, but it's shared with the graphics circuitry. And but it didn't use dual ported memory architecture, so there would be conflict or interleaving. So the BBC Micro, you could write with impunity to video RAM and it would never mess up the video display. But the Atom, you may know this, I don't know, but it's like if I go to my main loop and I turn off VSync, a horrendous thing will happen. Maybe if I hold down the control button, then we can. The ship's flying around. So it's going fast because I remove VSync, but you've got all this noise. And the noise is this emulator. I'm using an emulator, obviously, at the moment. This emulator is really good because it will simulate this aspect of the Atom, and it simulates it very well. So what's happening here is that I am accessing video RAM while the video circuitry is accessing video RAM, and when you do that you get this noise. So what complicates the engine, the sprite engine that I've made, is that there is only a relatively short period of time from the V blank to the top of the picture here, during which you're clear to write to VRAM without any noise. So I have to figure out all the rotation of the sprites and so on and put them into a draw buffer that the blit happens during the V blank. And this is one of the challenges of the Atom. And so I've managed, it's going to go down now that I have collision detection, but without collision detection I've been able to put 6 sprites, or maybe it'll still work with 6, I almost had 7. 6 sprites running at full, 50 FPS. Because all of the work is, the heavy lifting is done before the VSync, and then the VSync, it's just, some unrolled loops of copy this to the right address, Let me put the VSync back in. What this does mean, though, is it was really educational. It was invaluable that it behaved this way, because it really taught me right at the very beginning about the whole thing to do with VSync and so on, and put a very severe constraint on what you could do in the time available in that V blank time. So this is okay. This is not. If I click away, it will just continue spinning around. That's pleasing. So let's get some more of these collision checks in. Until presumably there'll be one that where it does this. Oh, come on, where it does this weird collision with itself. Ah, and there it is. Yep. It doesn't seem to matter which shape. I see that with 2 different shapes. Oh, that's interesting. What's interesting is that before where the collision occurred, it didn't disappear, did it? I have an inconsistency. I don't like that inconsistency. That's concerning. It's like I have a collision. Collision check is done straight after the something I think is going out of sync. But then on the other hand, it only happens. I don't know. Never mind that. I need to understand why it happens on this byte. Is there something wrong here? Increment y load. These are all the same. I have a compare. Oh, look at that. You remember when I was saying, and then I learned about, and then I realized that I could actually do the collision detection on the clear instead of on the draw. So I could remove an instruction. Well, that instruction was the compare. I left one in. It doesn't need that, because if you clear, you need that if you were checking on the draw. After you draw and you compare what you drew to what you wanted to draw and make sure they match. But if you check the collision on the clear, you just clear it and then add what was drawn with what you were drawing to make sure that nothing has remained set on the screen, which because of the exclusive OR plotting you will see if there was anything that it touched. I love the way that this is multiple uses of exclusive OR plotting. I just love exclusive OR plotting. This is the thing I wrote where I guess I devised it because there wasn't any books to read from. I thought, I need to clear the sprite after I draw the sprite. How do I do that? And if of course the idea of using the reverse plot, actually I think I must have read it somewhere, the idea of if you use exclusive OR plotting, you can make things move over lines on your screen without them getting erased. But anyway, it's a kind of magic, exclusive OR plotting. I have others as well. I need to check for these compares. Oh, that's. I didn't leave any others in there. I didn't. Well, one more. I think that's probably fixed the collision detection. Well, we'll see. Let's put it through its paces. Did it hit the A or not? It was right on the edge. And that it touched. I saw it. So it's actually not robust. Yeah. You saw where it collided. Oh. I still have a bunch of these here, that's why. And the whole thing with XOR and the beauty of XOR is why I tend to get mad when somebody asks the question, how can you swap two things without, using a third variable? And then you get some so-and-so who says, never ever use the XOR. If anybody ever uses the XOR, let's not talk about the XOR at all. Using the XOR solution for swapping two variables, what a disgusting thing. I would fire people who did that. Whatever. And I'm going, never underestimate the power of the exclusive ore. It's a shame because then people just can't be bothered to understand what exclusive ores actually are and why they're useful and contribute to the inevitable slowdown of software as the expertise gets killed off. We did some XOR checksumming on Specky to fix data corrupted by the interrupt. Oh. That sounds very interesting. Well, you can do checksums that work by exclusive OR, and then they have the beauty that you can apply them again and then it reverses. I suppose it might be a similar thing to that, connected with that in some way. That sounds very interesting. Anyway, where are we now? We are trying. Yeah, that looked convincing. So I'm going to change this now. I'm getting increasingly confident of the thing. I just need to undo my debug code. So this one here, halt on a collision. But instead of doing a halt on the collision, we're going to do a jump, not halt, but jump delay. That delay routine is just a bunch of vsyncs. At least then I don't disturb any registers. It's still halted because I have a second check for a halt in here. Let me comment that out. And so now when there's a collision, it should not do that. That was not what I intended. Oh, maybe that delay routine does actually disturb registers. This is a terrible place to put that. That's just utter horrible. I didn't do that. That was embarrassing. Honestly, you didn't see that. We'll move on. Nothing to see here. Instead, I will put the delay where it belongs out here. What was I thinking? Now that's weird. You see that little thing up there? That means it's come back to base. It's back to basic. Clear 0. Clar? Oh, the error caused. Ah, but something is corrupted. Of course it is, because I've just zapped the machine with my code. I believe it's because I did jump delay instead of jump to the delay function. And so you jump to the delay function when it does the RTS, it returns back to because whatever. Let's jump to subroutine. Let's not jump to a subroutine. This is nice. That's looking pretty good. That's colliding with stuff off the screen. I need to. Now, when the collision occurred there, we were looking at it did the pause 1 pixel late, but I think that's because it's doing the collision detection on the clear. I'm not sure it's perfect. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It'll be 1 pixel behind because it detected the collision, but then it detects the collision when clearing the previous position and drawing the next position. So it will be one. That's the disadvantage of drawing on the clear, is we 1 frame behind. But I don't think that's a problem. This looks like a working collision routine. Working quite nicely. And that's it. What time is it? It's 1:45. I think that's a good point to leave it with the working collision. I think the next thing I'll be working on is the, well, what? I'll be working on the mechanic. Well, I need to actually work on the detection of what I've collided with. And then the first part of the gameplay, which is cleaning up the letters. Oh, it's a sprite. You mentioned that. I didn't answer before. It's a sprite. There are 16 sprites. There's no way that I could afford to do it any other way. But it's a little awkward trying to get some of those, you know, the 30-degree ones to look nice. And those sprites are all here. So that was, I spent a good amount of time yesterday making those sprites. They're all in there somewhere. Anyway, it's been nice talking to Alan and John and Zag, of course, as well. And who else do we have? Leopoldo. So yeah. Take care, everyone. Have a good night. We'll carry on with this soon. Cheers.